we're gonna start streaming live to YouTube. So let me get that slowly going. Sorry. It is, and as I recall, I had to figure out how to mute it last time. For a second. Mm-hmm. We're gonna start streaming live to YouTube. So let me get that slowly. There we go. I found it quicker this time. That's called progress. All right. Let's see. So Ken Whitco?
Here.
James Hairston?
Here.
Yes. Mark Pila?
Here.
Alan Hart?
Here.
Ray Dotson?
Here.
Sorry. Oh, and I think this is Mark Terry. Let me let him in. Did that work? And Mark Terry. I see his name there, so I'm going to go with it. We have Councilmember Mike Brenstetter.
Yes.
Okay, and Chief Mike Zorro. All right. And then Assistant Fire Chief Scott Adams. All right. And I think that's everybody. Oh, sorry. And we have our guest speaker, Councilmember Mary Moss here as well. Sorry.
No worries.
There we go.
Great. I'm assuming everybody's had a chance to look at the minutes, and if there is no changes or admissions or whatever, we got to have a motion to approve.
I move they be approved as provided.
We do have a motion to approve. We have a second. Mark was the motion to approve. Second. Ray, second.
I've got that.
Okay. Oh, shoot. We do have public comments, but now I'm trying to find out where they are. You sent them to me, right? Joanna,
I did, yes.
Okay, hang on. I had them. Oh, good grief. Maybe it's a separate one. Sorry, hang on, folks. Oh, here we are. Got it. Okay, so we do have public comments, and it's necessary to read public comments as we are live streaming to YouTube. So we, in this process, we're receiving public comments via email. They were allowed to be sent up till 4 p.m. today. Were there any other comments other than the one that you sent earlier?
There were not.
Okay, so the one comment is from Charles Ames. It states, Chief Zorro, at the most recent city council meeting, you stated that a decision about the LPD officer involved shooting on May 1st on Steilacoom Boulevard may soon be reached. You mentioned a possible, quote, charging decision, end quote. What are the extent of the options available to the finding body, and when and where will this decision be made? Also, can the PD choose to take action beyond the findings? Under separate cover, I inquire about interviewing Officer Wiley in general outside the investigation. Thank you. I'm not sure I understand that last sentence, but okay. So, oh, did I do something? Hang on a second. I got another message here. What do I got a message about?
Sorry, I was trying to help. It's the same thing. You can ignore it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so that is, any other public comments?
No, sorry.
Okay, seeing none and hearing none, we close public comment session and moving on to our presentation. So Councilmember Mary Moss, thank you so much for coming this afternoon. We actually had invited you several months back and were derailed by the COVID-19 pandemic. So we appreciate you being patient and coming. And I think it's actually earlier today, I think I mentioned it was probably providential that you're here to talk about the coalition that you're founding or
Yes.
founded. So please take it away and share what you're doing. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Good afternoon, good evening, rather, everybody. I'm so used to being in the middle of the day or at night, so it's hard to think of good evening, but it's good to see everybody and it's good to be a part of your meeting today. I'm excited to share with you some of the information of the history of how the Lakewood Multicultural Coalition, LMCC, became a reality. And so a few years ago, the city manager, Mr. John Caulfield, gave an update of the city of Lakewood to the Black collectives group that's in Tacoma. And if any of you have ever attended one of their Black collectives meetings, you know that it is a safe place to let your voice be heard. So later I asked Mr. Caulfield how he felt about the way the meeting was conducted. And his comment was, I like it. We need something like that in Lakewood. A place where people feel comfortable to open up and share. Congressman Denny Heck also attends those meetings from time to time, the Black collective meetings from time to time. And in conversation with him later, he also talked about the Black collective meetings and how he appreciated attending those meetings and how well they were run. And so he looked at me and he said, we need something like that in Lakewood. And that to me was very encouraging to hear both the city manager and the congressman say that. So following that, in 2015, the Lakewood City Council approved a vision statement that emphasized the importance of the Lakewood diversity in our community's future. The commitment to equity and inclusion led to the formation of the Lakewood Multicultural Coalition, LMCC. So we talked about how we appreciated the diversity in our community, but we were not doing anything specific to show that we did appreciate the diversity. So I thought about it over and over, and a vision started to formulate in my mind. And my focus immediately went back to the conversation I'd had with the city manager and Congressman Heck. And I realized how their comments were fueling the vision that was formulating in my head. So in October 2016, I started hosting meetings with representation from the Lakewood Y, the police department, the fire department, the Boys and Girls Club, just mentioning it to when I attended various networking groups, talking to some of our elected officials to get a feel of how they felt, how they would react to a program on diversity in Lakewood. It became very clear that there was a great interest in the subject of diversity, which further fueled my vision and helped me to bring it together. LMCC takes pride in honoring unity and humanity through community inclusion. Our mission statement is to provide a voice to all people and community through celebration, empowerment, and inclusion. Our vision statement is building communities, fostering diversity together. Our board consists of Zim Murray of the Y, Mike Brandstetter with the City of Lakewood, Kathy Lannon with Hearthstone Credit Union, Ron Banner, Superintendent for the School Board, the Clover Park School District, Grant Wyman, the Diversity Coordinator for Clover Park School District, and Kimi Jen with the IMIK Enterprise. Kimi also operates in the education field. We are a small group, but we have accomplished a lot. We were in the process of electing committee members and growing our board before the COVID-19 pandemic. We worked long and hard, but with the help of an attorney, Christopher T.L. Brown, with the North Star Law Group, we were able to finalize our bylaws. And in January of 2019, LMCC became a 501c3 organization. And with the recent display of protest have compelled LMCC to support changes that must occur in order to eliminate discrimination and other injustice experienced by people of color, those impacted by poverty, and other marginalized groups. So through proactive initiatives and activities, LMCC is working diligently to break down bridges, to break down barriers and build bridges to assist in unifying the citizens of Lakewood and the greater Puget Sound area. LMCC realizes that we can only impact what's happening in the world by making a difference in our community. The COVID-19 is preventing LMCC from moving forward at this time. However, it is allowing us time to better prepare for the future. In 2017, LMCC looked at how we could partner with existing community groups, cultivate diverse talents and inclusive leadership to expand and improve community resources. We will continue to grow our board and our committees as we move forward following the COVID-19 pandemic. So to share some of the accomplishments that we have accomplished, in 2019, LMCC joined forces with Clover Park School District and the police department. LMCC supported a program called Connecting Cops and Students. It was very successful. Once the students realized that they were in a safe place to let their voice be heard, the dialogue between the students and the police was outstanding. The students felt safe, so they opened up and shared their true feelings. We learned a lot from the students, and the students learned a lot about the police and their work. It was a select group of people, along with several police officers. I think the first meeting we had like 8 or 9 police officers attending the meeting, and with the students given permission by the parents to meet in that type of a setting. So Hudloff and Lockbourne Middle School hosted the program. It was so successful that it was requested to be continued throughout the year, with visits to other schools, eventually to include high schools. Because at this point, we were just working with our middle school students. Some other activities that we participated in was the Clover Park Technical College International Diversity Fair, where we had a booth, we shared information, and we were seeking input from the citizens as to how they would like to see diversity celebrated in Lakewood. The overwhelming response was they would like to see a diversity festival in Lakewood. In fact, each survey that we did, the most responses was to have a diversity fair festival in Lakewood. So prior to the COVID-19, the board had started to make arrangements for planning a diversity festival in September of 2020, which we had to put on hold. Our plan was to host an event at the pavilion in September of this year. We scheduled a date to coordinate with other activities happening in other areas of the park in order to attract and increase our attendance. As you know, music and food is always a big draw, and we will continue to plan and seek support from other organizations and service clubs to make a diversity festival a reality in Lakewood. We had a booth at the farmers market and talked to several people that were excited to see that Lakewood was looking at some form of recognizing the diversity in our city. So every event that we participated in, the attendees gave us confidence that we were onto something big and that we needed and would be appreciated in Lakewood. I was excited to hear that our new Rotary president, Mr. Mark Edgecombe's theme was about diversity. So there again is another opportunity and some encouragement, which will also encourage an opportunity for LMCC to collaborate and work with our service clubs. We want to, some of the other things that we talked about doing was like doing workshops on financial literacy. We have representation from Hearthstone Credit Union that would be a good instructor for working with our students, but everything is on hold at this point until we can get back on to meeting publicly. We were well on our way and with getting our social media up. And so with COVID-19, that also went had to go on hold. We had our first Zoom meeting a couple of weeks ago. So hopefully we can start making plans for 2021. We had talked about doing something the fourth quarter of 2020, but it looked like that's not going to be feasible as well. So are we going to look at 2021? We have a Facebook page that is not very active at this point, but that will change now that we are hosting Zoom meetings. We started hosting Zoom meetings a couple of weeks ago, and I'm excited for the future of LMCC once the pandemic is over. We are open for receiving new board members, new committee members, ideas, in-kind support, anything that you can think of that will help us to continue to move forward. We're open to that. If you want to get involved, you're welcome. We recommend, or if you can recommend someone, that would be great. So because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we have not done a lot this year, but we will be making plans for 2021. So at this point, if you have any questions, suggestions, or ideas, I'm open.
Thank you,
Mary, Ms.
Councilmember
Mary.
Moss. Go ahead. Go ahead. Actually, Joanna, can you share that Facebook page, please? So just wanted to let you guys know that that's available there. It's a Facebook page /LMCCWA. And so I wanted you to be able to see that. So
Is that working?
Yeah,
yep, you can see it.
You want me?
Thank you.
Am I good to stop?
You can, anybody can like it that's there, and but thank you. Any input about that, Councilmember Moss? Do you have anything to say about your Facebook page?
Other than the fact that we have not been very active, but we're going to be picking up the activities. Now, we talked about something that we could possibly do as far as supporting people that have had bad experiences or that are on hard times with the COVID-19. So when we have our next meeting, that will be part of our agenda to see if there's something that we can do to help a family or some families out in that area, since we can't do anything with the students. So, but thank you for that.
Thank you. Is there any questions, comments?
Question?
Mark Terry.
Yes, I know that we have representatives that goes out to the neighborhoods, neighborhood committees, and have a representative from this council here. So my question to you, Ms. Moss, is are you looking or seeking to have a representative from this council to your the LMCC?
I would love to.
Okay, I'm multi-volunteer, military, blah, blah, blah. And I'll go ahead and volunteer for that because, and the reason I'm volunteer for that is because I have a linchpin with my spouse who's a nurse practitioner that has gone out to churches and other places and talked to ladies of different cultures regarding like breast health, lactation, and stuff like that. So she would, I'm almost willing to bet she would also be able to talk at these meetings. So
I would appreciate that. And if you would get that information to me, I would truly appreciate it and keep you in the loop.
Will do.
Thank you.
Awesome. Any other comments, questions?
Good job, thank you. Mr. Branstad is also on my board. I didn't know if he wanted to share anything.
No,
Yes,
yeah, you've covered things comprehensively, Mary.
Thank you, Mike.
Mary, can you give a brief overview of who's on the board?
Yes, that would be Zim Murray with the Y. Let's see, Mike Branstad with the City of Lakewood Council, City Council. Ron Banner, Superintendent for the Clover Park School District. And Grant Twyman, he's the Diversity Coordinator for Clover Park School District. So the both of them are serving because when one can't make the meeting, the other one can. So we always have representation from the school because one of our big issues, well, not an issue, one of our big projects is to build the bridge between our police officers and our young men and women. So, and Kimi is, she's part of the school district as well.
And are your board meetings such that they can be attended by others?
Absolutely. Well, no, at this point, we were more or less seeking board members or committee members, but we would welcome input from others. Yeah, we want to grow our board. Right now, it's just 5 or 6 of us trying to do the work, and we're trying to diversify the board as much as possible. So thank you for that. And any help you can give us, we appreciate it.
Yeah. The one other board member is Kathy Lanning.
Yes,
Kathy
sorry.
is from Hearthstone Credit Union, which is the primary financial supporter of the LMCC. They have committed to a series of multi-year contributions to get this organization to be running effectively.
Yeah. In fact, last year we were fortunate enough to secure a little over $12,000 as part of pretty much a seed monies to get us going to do the things that we were going to do. So Hearthstone is a big proponent, and so is the city of Lakewood. Any other questions?
My computer's freezing up there. So any other questions? Thank you so much, Councilmember Moss, for sharing with us, and appreciate that very much, taking time out of your day.
Well, thank you. And in going forward, if you have suggestions and ideas, we're open.
Perfect. I have a suggestion. I was in financial services for 10 years and loved teaching people about how to get out of debt, how to start their own financial retirement plans and stuff like that. Maybe if you want to have some guy like me in to talk about stuff like that, I'd welcome it at some point.
Be careful what you ask for. I made a note of that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay. Did you have a question, Chief?
No, I thought Mary was about to leave and I was waving goodbye.
Oh, okay.
He was trying to get rid of me. Get out.
He doesn't want to get volunteered.
Thank you, Chief. I have to give you a call. I need to talk with you.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Next, City Council liaison comments. Councilmember Brandstetter.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have just a few items. The Consul has been operating in a virtual sense based on the ever sequence of extended proclamations from the governor. And so in that regard, we have been limited to doing only things that are routine or things that are essential. And so there are some things that are in the middle that we're not really able to deal with it. One of those things that has to do with amending the fireworks portions of the Lakewood Municipal Code. And when the Consul received your recommendations that we leave the code alone but launch some education efforts, the Consul thought that they wanted to get one more round of public input before we took or didn't take any action on that. And we have scheduled a series of public hearings on that to gather input, and we've been received input across the spectrum of ideas and thoughts about fireworks in the city. But we've been keeping that open because we're waiting to where we can actually have a face-to-face meeting, have a final session of input and then discuss what it is that we want to do. And I wouldn't predict to you what that is, because I'm not sensing a particular consensus amongst myself and my colleagues at this point, given the variety of input that's coming in, and with your recommendation in front of us as a thing to go. That right now, without an extension, we would be able to begin meeting in regular meetings and be able to do business like this in September. And we've scheduled the taking of input to go run through our meeting on September 8th. Should that be extended to where we have to operate in the virtual realm, I think that date will get extended to that point in time. So that's sort of where, how far down the road that we've kicked that can on fireworks. At our last meeting, the city council did process the appointment of non-law enforcement community representatives to serve the required function to assist when there are investigations of officer uses of deadly force. This is something that is a new element that is in state law, and Lakewood is, along with the other law enforcement entities in Pierce County, have entered into an agreement, and as a part of that, each of them is able to place folks on a panel from which on any given investigation, there would be non-law enforcement citizen representatives that would have certain roles within that process as independent investigations move on. And I would say that maybe in the chief's comments later, he can speak a little bit to how that program is coming together. But the consul did approve that the appointment of Larry Woods from Lake City, of Juanita Beard, who lives in Oak Brook, and Julius Brown, who also lives in Oak Brook, to be the three folks that will be on this county-wide panel of non-law enforcement folks to do that, from which participants would be chosen for any particular investigation. And I will sort of kind of decline to answer any questions on that by deferring them to the chief, since he is far more knowledgeable about how this process is going to be rolled out, and because it is new. The last thing that I guess I would say is that the city council also did appoint 23 students to be the youth council for this coming year, beginning in September through next July. The 23 students represent Clover Park High School, Lakes High School, Harrison Prep, Summit Olympus High School, which is a charter school here in Pierce County, and the Charles Wright Academy are represented on the council this year. The council has not yet had an organizing session to be able to go and do that, so they haven't identified yet a liaison to this group. But that is something that is an early order of business as they get together. And since school is going to start virtually, I think the youth councils will begin meeting virtually and doing those things. I guess other than that, if there is any questions about actions the council is taking or any rumors about what the council is up to, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? One question I have, Mike, is as I recall, the public comment was for the fireworks was pushed to, when was that? I cannot remember the date.
Pushed till September 8th now.
8th, okay. And as I recall, if this ends up still being a Zoom session, then from what you indicated, then we'd probably push that further until we can actually have in-person comments. Is that kind of the idea?
Yes, it would be to do get it to in-person comments, but also this is one of those things that falls into that gray area that is neither routine nor an essential emergency type action. So it's not something the council would do while meeting in a virtual environment.
I will just note that I recommended at the council meeting when it was online via text messages and YouTube channel chat that be postponed also. So I think that was a wise decision because I think we need to have public comment regarding this. There's too much left unsaid, I think. So anyway, I appreciate that. Any other questions?
One of the advantages of doing it in person is, as opposed to just gathering up electronic comments and sharing them amongst the council, is people commenting really don't get the opportunity to hear what others are saying.
Exactly.
How that influences their thoughts.
Right. Precisely.
Chairman.
Yes, Rick.
I don't know how many of you saw the Suburban Times 2 August letter, Lakewood fireworks ban, KM kills with the author, created a fairly large number of responses. I've been gestating over my discontent with the allegations made by that person. Of course, they can say whatever they want, but I would point out that one of the things they said was the Public Safety Advisory Committee conducted informal surveys. The result was that a recommendation not to amend the city code due to low impact of the cause for service around fireworks discharges. Now, certainly one could extrapolate those words and make a sentence out of them, but it's totally absent all the things about the frustration of the availability of adequate law enforcement, the willingness to make that a priority. And in there, they start citing that there was particular reference to no calls for service. And I think we all know through the discussion, and certainly I know for years, I don't call anymore. And there's a couple of members of this committee that know I sat next to practically a pyromaniac show. This year, one of my cars was damaged on the roof from the burning embers that came down. My gutters were so saturated with components of aerial bombardment that I didn't know they were that. And then when it rained, I had to get them cleared. I had debris for 3 days that I practically crawled across my yard to pick up. I believe a tree at the entrance of our gated community was set afire fireworks, and it goes on and on and on. Now, did I write that up? It's the first time I, outside of neighbors, spoke of it. But I wonder, as a committee member, I'm feeling very motivated to respond to this, but I didn't know what jeopardy as a committee member. I mean, do I just disclose that I'm not saying this as a representation of the committee's sentiment? It's inaccurate the way that was extrapolated, and it's certainly absent a lot of context.
That I'm sitting here with the rest of you without the presence of the city attorney, so I don't really feel that how I'm able to advise you about how you should stage any comments you should choose to make. I think that, as a council member, generally, if I have got an opinion to present, I have to be upfront of saying, even though I'm on the council, this is my personal opinion and not a collective view of the council. And I'm sure that some similar some similar process would keep you in trouble if you chose to want to comment on it. I would say that those particular comments that were in that Suburban Times, and a good number of them, have been also forwarded to the city in the same things over there. So there are a part of the record that is being amassed about comments from the community, and you were free to be able to add your comments to that, perhaps on September 8th or another date when the council is taking comment again, and reference that comment.
Could I interrupt a minute? As I recall, that meeting, Ken had done an informal survey, as was stated, and it was just fireworks issue was discussed. I know I am opposed to fireworks and wanted a ban, or at least considerable limitation for what exists. But at the end of the discussion, the committee voted, and it was a majority vote to forward the recommendation that was forwarded. Even though some of us may have been in the minority, the majority of the committee consented to that report.
Well, one thing that I would point out to the group here is that one of the routine pieces of business that the council will get to here in the not distant future, and where a discussion of this would be appropriate, is the joint meeting between the Psac and the Consul, which, if you recall, when it was originally scheduled, it was deferred to take place in the fall. And I don't know exactly when that's scheduled yet, but there is an intention, as with all the other advisory committees, to have an annual joint meeting. That should be coming up at some point in time here.
I believe our meeting is on the 24th. That's at least in the agenda. Would that be correct, Joanna? Okay.
I guess my contention is, yes, the Psac did publish a recommendation, and in general, that comment has its roots in fact, but it hangs the anchor of this thing on due to low impacted calls, which our research basically said there were nearly no calls. And I think the police records that I've seen show there are essentially no calls, but it's not because they're in the problem. We know that. But I agree, Dr. Hart's comment, and I read all that. I was part of that subcommittee. Interestingly, one of those respondents said the mention of the Lakewood Public Safety Committee. That committee, like most committees, comprised of well-meaning, do-nothing citizens that sat around wringing their hands and looking for ways to take no action to generate no solutions. I sat on the committee for 2 years and I can no longer stand it, so I got off. And I guess that's a good outcome, that was their sentiment and they got off. But and I didn't resign away my opportunity to speak out in public. I mean, I'll resign from Psac if I can't be explicit about that, because this year really irritated me. I was disgusted by the 2 days of work I had to do to clean up my roof, clean up my driveway, help clean up the street, have a cosmetic repair to the roof of a vehicle, and then to find out my gutters and downspouts have been clogged by the aerial garbage that came back down. There's nothing that says I have to be exposed to that, but I did not dial Lakewood Police. even on this committee, I know that nothing was going to happen that would be fruitful. And then there's not a small thought of retaliatory behaviors for a while. We had that for a couple of years nearby. But I think having that comment go uncorrected or not more specifically addressed by a competent person, somebody who's either on the committee or reflected what the committee really recommended. But the bottom line was, yes, we looked at the resources, we looked at the inevitability of no enforcement really possible or no significant enforcement. And the chief showed us those aerial shots of all these, no bomb zones that were lit up like a war zone. So I don't think any of us were fooled that, artificially imposing some sort of new rule that can't be compelled to compliance, it was a waste of resources. But, well, I will watch for that opportunity for that public comment and for the committee. Mr. Chairman, if you find that the joint committee are going to readdress that, which I expect can't be avoided, I would like to contribute to that. But I thought if you haven't looked at the 2nd of August Suburban Times, you should look at that and feel bad about the time you waste being on this committee, if nothing else.
Well, if I could make a comment, I guess the credibility of the author of that, who spent 2 years on the committee and then complains it did nothing, is somewhat in question. What the hell was he doing sitting there? And then he complains it does nothing. Obviously, he was a participant in nothing. And there's no credibility.
I was on the committee with that person and they were not quiet during the meeting. So they did not seem to create a positive force.
No credibility.
Thank you for that.
Sometimes I just think, basically with people that are just ranting, there's really no reason to add any fuel to the fire or to waste any intelligent energy whatsoever responding to that sort of silly stuff. But anyway, if there would have been some, at least in my opinion, some intelligent questions going on rather than just a blasting of us do nothings, well, then there'd be a reason to respond. But that's my take. But I don't think there's anything wrong with citizens in Lakewood, whether you're on this committee or not, responding to something you see as an op-ed in a newspaper. Does anybody know that would be wrong? Or no? Why would that be an issue? I don't know.
Well, several of you know I was on the committee for a large number of years, left, and then I came back and I didn't consider going back so I could find a new place to waste time. I don't have time to waste. And I look at the members now and it's a very constructive group with very different backgrounds. And I think we have a huge potential to give useful contributions to the city.
I think we all have freedom of speech. So if somebody wants to respond with their personal opinion, why not?
I'll let this cook for a while and then I'll see if we get any other feedback. I'm very adverse to trouble. I never get into that.
Yeah, all right. Thank you, Ray. All right. Any other questions for Councilmember Brandstetter? Thank you. Okay, moving on to fire department comments. Scott Adams. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's 4th of July, busy time of the year, right? Our July 1 through 5 year over year this year tracked pretty much the same call volume as last year, which is about 265 calls. And that's total calls. That's not fireworks related. That's medical aid calls as well. I did report with West Pierce. We had 15 firework events related to fireworks. 12 of those were in Lakewood and 11 of those were vegetation fires. So we didn't have any structure fires, no shed fires, but we had larger kind of vegetation, tree type fires that people couldn't put out. Now that doesn't mean that that's all there was. We did have a number of people that called and said, hey, we put a fire out type of thing. So there are other small grass fires that happened that we didn't respond to. and a new vehicle that we put on this year, January 1, to try it out. Maybe you've seen it out in the community. It's called Squad 21. It's a large Suburban. We put a couple firefighters on there, and the piece with that is to help us with those low acuity type calls. So service calls, maybe it's a small grass fire or someone that falls and just needs a little bit of help. So Squad 21 helped out in some of those incidents during the 4th of July. So that was very helpful. We're continuing to stay safe like everybody else. We've got people that have alternative schedules. Some people are, most of the admin, they're kind of working from home a couple days a week and then coming into the office a couple days a week. So they're alternating that. Most of our, as like with everybody else, most of our events are canceled pretty much through the end of the year. We are looking to do a 9/11 ceremony, and we're going to push that out through social media. And for those of you that don't maybe follow West Pierce, we do all of our social media through Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And we're going to put that out on September 11th. So keep your eyes out for that. Last week, we did a COVID public testing site at one of our fire stations that was very successful. We did 340 tests. Lakewood Police helped out, Department of Health and Pierce County DEM sponsored the event, and we just kind of helped get people going in the right direction. And kind of the last thing is we're continuing to work with schools to try to support them with their endeavors this fall. Things are, as we know, are going to look a lot different. So we're going to try to support them. Also an entity called Caring for Kids. We're going to miss a big event with them. So we're trying to support the schools the best that we can. So we're kind of waiting to hear more back on that. And that's about it. Any questions about anything that we're doing, or 4th of July or anything?
Question? Are you still doing the helmets and the life jackets by appointment?
They are, yeah. So through social media, they can call our business line, and they can, they'll talk to somebody, and we'll figure out the best way to get them a helmet or a life jacket. They'll either meet at the station, or we'll come to your house and fit you there if you don't have any means to get to the fire station. So
okay. I got a flock of grandkids. I got to get suited up and covered. Also, I went to the testing yesterday. Was it yesterday? Yeah. At
University Place? Yeah.
Please tell Rachel that, as usual, I'm one of the CERT folks. The CERT gang did great. They're standing out there in that bloody heat. Some of the cars changing lanes almost took a foot or two off, and they're real troopers.
Yes, and I apologize for that. Those CERT folks were a huge piece of that. They made up almost half of the volunteers that helped out between the police and the fire folks. So we couldn't pull that off without CERT folks. And thank you, Ray, for bringing that up. Appreciate that.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Scott. Appreciate. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mark.
Hey, Scott. I was just thinking this in the view of the fact that you mentioned that you work with schools, and you probably help them go through maybe evacuations and stuff like that, and such. Any given thought to the fact that a lot of schools are going to be doing distance learning now, to trickle that down to actually to the homes themselves and say, hey, kids, you know, you're not in school now where you typically go through a fire drill or something like that. And now, hey, your learning environment is your home now, to maybe think about having an escape plan from your house, or even looking at ensuring that your proper smoke detectors, everything's working and such.
No, we're working with, actually there's a program that maybe one of the council members might bring up. I think it's Bring a Better You. Anyway, there was a video that City of Lakewood shot out. So we were looking to do some social media work with that with smoke alarms, carbon monoxide alarms, home safety checklists. And then with the schools, we're going to be pushing out some videos in September and October because there's Fire Prevention Week. And so the big push this year is about getting kids and families thinking about escape plans, but it also it surrounds kitchen fires, because that's certainly where we see a lot of our fires is in the home, in the kitchen, unattended cooking type stuff. So yeah, look out for those September and October. We'll be pushing those out.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it. Moving on to Police Department comments. Chief Zarro.
Good evening, everyone. Just to cover a few things and then open it up for questions. First, I presented our quarterly report, the second quarter report to the council, 2 weeks ago, maybe. A couple of the big takeaways. One is with regard to the crime rate. The overall crime rate ticked up a fuzz from the first quarter, but I will tell you that that is exclusive or almost exclusively because of two types of crimes. One are aggravated assaults, and the other is vehicle theft. The aggravated assaults don't really have, and obviously that number is much smaller than the auto theft, but it's still, there was a significant increase, and that's related to gun crimes. The auto thefts, there was a pretty healthy increase there as well. And the mayor actually brought it up during the council meeting. And one of the, I think, most likely explanations is that there's a little ring of thieves running around that we aren't able to book into jail because of COVID restrictions. And when they're out, they're stealing. And that's, I think, probably a big contributing factor. And we actually had an incident this last week where we caught somebody in a stolen car with a gun, and we couldn't book them into jail because they, because of the COVID restrictions, they didn't meet the criteria. So people who commit property crimes, that's what they do with their free time. And if they're out and about, you're going to see an increase in property crimes. And I suspect that that is what that increase is attributed to. That said, even if we took away just the increase in those two areas, we would have had an overall decrease, another significant overall decrease to where we're at the lowest crime rates we've seen in many, many years. So it's positive trends looking at that. There was a few other things I touched on, the 4th of July stuff. I had numbers from West Pierce that I included in my report regarding some of the fires that occurred. I was actually out on 4th of July just to see, you know, as usual, to see what it was like and what was going on. And there was no shortage of fireworks going off. So the complaints you have are legitimate. I mean, nobody's making it up that there's a lot of fireworks. So there's just more discussion, I think, that needs to be had with public comment. Councilmember Brandstetter mentioned the selection of the non-law enforcement representatives to our Pierce County Force Investigation Team. That is, we are nearing the point where we're going to be able to actually stand the team up. What we're waiting on is one more signature from the State Patrol, and then every agency in Pierce County will have signed on. And most agencies who can will have selected their non-law enforcement representatives. And so the next step will be to arrange a meeting with all of them together. And then after that, do the selection of investigators for the team, and we'll be up and running and ready to go. Knowing exactly what that's going to look like is still a little tough because it is brand new. I know there's going to be some growing pains as we get started, but we're very close. And we just need these last few administrative things to get done, and then we'll be on our way. With that, I know there was a public comment or a question about our officer involved shooting. That will be the deciding authority on that is and has always been the Pierce County Prosecutor's Office. Once the investigation is done, and that's being done by outside agencies, once that is done, it will get forwarded to the Pierce County Prosecutor, and she'll make a decision about charging. If charges are filed, it could be anything from murder to manslaughter to reckless endangerment, or she can make the decision that no charges are being filed. And that is either way, that is in her purview, and that's the person that makes that decision. So we still have probably a few more weeks, maybe until the investigation's done, then maybe a few weeks after that before we have a prosecutor's decision. So that's where that stands. Beyond that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Go ahead, Alan, please.
A couple things. One is, are the package and mail thieves involved in the same ring as the vehicle theft and prowls?
No. So